Welcome to Social Skills Coaching, where you learn to be more likable, more charismatic, and more productive. Today is Tuesday, the 14th of March, 2023. Today's episode is from Patrick King's book, Communication Skills Training. We take a deep look at how to increase rapport by mirroring and matching internal and external cues, voice and language, content, and chunking styles. Imagine you're sitting across the street from a cafe, watching 3 tables, each with 2 people having a conversation. At table A, both people are leaning in together, seemingly mimicking one another's facial expressions and hand gestures, while at table B, the people talking are looking very serious and low energy, but they've both leaned back in their chairs and, just like table A, seem to be mirroring one another's behavior. Table C is different. One person is seemingly excited and smiling, while the other is calmer, speaking less, and adopting a completely different posture and facial expression. Without knowing anything about the content of the conversation, you can probably tell, even from afar, which conversations are going well and which one isn't. That's because at its most fundamental, good communication is not about the words you say, but the degree of concordance, harmony, and synchronicity between you and the person you're talking to. So this is exactly our next pit stop on our journey to becoming better communicators. Mirroring and matching. Have you ever actually wondered what chemistry is? That fizzle of energy and connection between 2 people is something that's difficult to describe, but you definitely know it when you feel it. However mysterious it feels, this chemistry is actually well explained as an evolutionary adaptation that's helped our species bond, connect, and establish trust, even before we developed verbal language. Mirroring and matching don't need much explanation. You've seen it with your own eyes. When we match and mirror, we mimic not just what others say, but how they say it, the words they use, their accents, turns of phrase, gestures, posture, voice tone, pitch and volume, and facial expression. Here's the thing. We all instinctively know how to mirror and match. It's just that the more charismatic among us know how to do it deliberately. In the 1970s, Richard Bandler and John Grinder introduced a communication theory they called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. They claimed that most people tend to feel happier and more comfortable around those who are similar to them, even if this recognition of similarity is largely unconscious. Have you ever noticed 2 people get together for the first time and immediately start to look for things in common between them? They may smile as they both realize they grew up in the same area, or like the same shows when they were kids, or both indirectly knew the same people. As they do this, they may start to reflect and mimic one another, matching the other's tone of voice, hand movements, and other idiosyncrasies. It's as though the more similar we feel to the person in front of us, the more we feel that they can hear and understand us, and the more we trust and like them. Mirroring is copying and reflecting a behavior in the same moment. So they smile and you smile. They whisper and so do you. Done right, it creates feelings of harmony and synchrony, like you're both doing a coordinated dance in time with one another. Matching is copying and reflecting, but not necessarily at the same time. So perhaps they use an unusual and noteworthy turn of phrase, which you remember and return to later in the conversation, almost literally communicating, I speak the same language as you. The wonderful thing is that mirroring and matching can create strong feelings of harmony and connection, even without you saying a word. It's difficult to estimate just how much communication is nonverbal, but it's clear that the proportion is significant. Whether you're meeting someone new, talking to an old friend, or trying to navigate a prickly conflict, matching and mirroring is a great skill to master since it always gives you a solid base on which to build. There are 3 main ways to build rapport by using matching and mirroring. Way 1. Match and mirror external communication cues. Body language and nonverbal communication are prior to verbal communication. If you adopt the same posture as the person in front of you, you duplicate their experience in your own body and can understand more about their position, literally. You also communicate that you're on the same wavelength and will create feelings of being in sync. In conversation, simply notice how open or closed body language as a whole seems. Look for tension, crossed arms, hunched posture, closed fists, frowning, or relaxation, open arms, expressive hands, legs uncrossed. Without aping them very obviously, try to match this degree of openness or closedness. Next, notice gestures, i.e., body postures in motion. Are they moving quickly or slowly? Are they graceful and flowing, or sharp and staccato? Wide and expansive, fidgety, protective, restrained? How do the gestures line up with everything else in the conversation? Match and mirror this. You can also match and mirror facial expressions. In fact, you might find you do this automatically just by paying close attention to the other person. You could focus on just one most notable aspect, for example, the eyebrows or the corners of the mouth. Again, see if you can match the position, movement, and degree of openness or closedness there, especially at points in the conversation when emotional content is being communicated. You could say, "I know how you feel," but when your facial expression matches theirs, you're doing something more powerful. You are showing that you understand what they mean. Way 2. Match and mirror voice and language. This is a rich area to tap. Consider all the aspects of the voice that have nothing to do with the words used. Tone, rate or speed, volume, both loudness and simply the amount of speech, pitch, how high or low, pace, inflection, and modulation, how you deliver your sentences, and the flow of speech. For example, with lots of variation or with a steady, even monotone. You can match and mirror on any of the above 5 aspects, or potentially all of them. The key, however, is to do it subtly and naturally. For example, if the person you're speaking to is talking quickly, fast rate, speaking quite loudly, high volume, and in a high pitch, and talking with an excitable and highly inflected tone, then you can signal your empathy and understanding of their frame of mind by mimicking some of this yourself. You could subtly raise your own pitch, talk a little louder than you ordinarily would, and mirror that excitement back at them. Overall, you're attempting to match the energy of what they're communicating. Just remember that the voice is part of the body, and so every aspect of the voice is essentially body language. One thing you might not have considered is what communication experts call sensory predicates. Basically, these are systems of meaning that we use to explain our experiences. We each have a system, whether we're aware of it or not, i.e., we might favor descriptions and explanations that are visual, auditory, kinesthetic, feeling, auditory digital. A few examples will show how sensory predicates play out in real life. A visual predicate, for example, uses language, symbolism, and metaphors that are based in the physiology of sight. So you might pepper your speech with terms like picture this, look, view, bright, reveal, short-sighted, paint a picture, I can see, clear, dim, etc. Similarly, more auditory, to do with sound predicates, will include phrases like listen, tell, clear as a bell, on the same frequency, lend me your ears, strike a note, loud and clear. Kinesthetic and feeling predicates may overlap somewhat and mix both meanings of the word feel. For example, I'm touched, concrete, solid, hot and bothered, get in touch, handhold, grasp, make contact, etc. So-called auditory digital predicates are more focused on the cognitive experience of the world. For example, with terms like understand, know, think, process, figure it out, pay attention, wonder, etc. The point of understanding the predicates someone uses is so that you can match and mirror these two. The result can be an instant connection and feeling of rapport. For example, if someone consistently uses visual predicates, they may say, I like the look of this idea. You've painted a clear picture of the most important goals. If you pick up on this, you can continue and expand the visual metaphors or include your own by later saying something like, I see what you mean. I'm glad we're focusing on the same vision here. Now, this might not seem like much, but it's a powerful way to unconsciously signal that you speak the same language. And even more than this, inhabit the same perceptual world as the other person. If you're not entirely clear which kind of predicate the person is using, it's no big deal. Simply prick your ears, there's an auditory one, to the kinds of metaphors they use, and repeat or expand on them, rather than abruptly switching to a different metaphor. Way 3. Match and mirror internal communication cues. This one is a little less obvious. The voice in the body may be easier to notice at first glance, but have you ever simply felt that people have different energy levels from each other? This energy is about how active, energetic, and vibrant someone is, yes, but it can also be more subtle than this. Think of someone who's really good at doing impressions. They're able to so perfectly capture another person's personality, not just because they can mimic their voice and mannerisms, but also because somehow they can put all these things together and portray the person's deeper essence. Noticing this essence takes practice, but at first, try to simply pay attention to how people are taking up space, how they're breathing, and the aggregate of all their expressions, language, posture, appearance, comes across. Reflecting someone's essence may take a special touch, but you'd be surprised at how instantly you can create camaraderie if you can do so. If ever you're with someone and you just click, try to see things from the other side and ask what the other person did to make you feel that communication and connection were so easy with them. Chances are, it's mirroring. Here's a little trick you can try, not just to build rapport, but to test whether you're getting anywhere in that goal. Step 1, pay attention to their internal or external communication cues or their voice and language. Step 2, match or mirror subtly on just one or two aspects. Step 3, after a little while, match them on some other aspect. Step 4, finally, do something different. For example, if you've been mirroring a low and slow tone of voice, plus crossed legs, suddenly change up your voice and speak louder or more quickly, or uncross your legs and cross your arms instead. Step 5, now, observe. Do they follow suit and mirror you? If so, congratulations, you've likely established rapport. If not, then no problem, there's still time. As you get better at matching and mirroring, and conversation in general, you can start experimenting with leading interactions with certain behaviors rather than just following the other person's lead. This way, you can take charge of conversations and shape them in a positive direction, fostering connection and understanding, usually without the other person even knowing it. Here's another trick you can try once you get the hang of reading other people's communication cues. Step 1. Think of someone you have an excellent rapport with and try to feel what it feels like when you're around that person. Really recreate that experience in your body, heart, and mind. Step 2. Consciously try to summon up that same feeling in yourself right now, imagining it expanding through your body. For example, maybe with a very good friend, you feel expansive, you're quick to smile, and you lean forward ever so slightly. Maybe you feel ultra relaxed and warm. Whatever the sensation is, imagine that it's surrounding you like an aura. Then, let it guide how you behave, think, feel, and move in the moment. Step 3. Project the feeling toward the person you're with and imagine that this amazing aura is flowing around them too. This technique is taking a reverse perspective on mirroring, since you're the one who's going first and inviting others to mirror and match you. If you master those good, happy vibes, don't be surprised if people suddenly seem very willing to be drawn in. Way 4. Match on content. Basically, seek common ground. If people like people who are like them, then rapport is, in some ways, just a matter of finding how you're like the person in front of you. Potential areas of common ground include your history and background, such as school, hometown, past jobs, shared connections. Personal values, such as family, hard work, creativity, learning, etc. Core beliefs about the world. Emotional state, both current and more generally in life. Style. Accent, ways of speaking and verbal idiosyncrasies. Hobbies. Shared experiences. Degree of formality. For example, do they use slang or swear words? Are they very correct, polite, and articulate? Convention, class, age, or generation? Personality differences. For example, some people bond over being flippant, quirky, serious-minded, poetic, spiritually inclined, straight-laced, mischievous, etc. But people can also differ in their focus on the bigger picture versus the details, the emotional versus the factual content of a conversation, or the overall volume of information they're comfortable exchanging. Way 5. Chunking. One final way to establish effortless rapport is something you might not have considered before: carefully moderating the questions you ask people to control the level of detail of information you get. There are 2 different modes we can adopt anytime we ask someone a question. Chunking down is about diving down into details and going from the general to the specific. Questions that chunk down give more color, depth, and richness to the conversation. However, if you stay too long mired in the details, the conversation can quickly get lost, overwhelmed, or even boring. We ask a chunking down question every time we want to learn more. And when we do so, we build rapport, since we're showing interest in the real nitty-gritty of what we're told. For example, we could ask, how exactly did that happen? Tell me more about XYZ. Why did this specific thing happen? Chunking up goes in the other direction, from the specific to the general. We ask a question that leads us to see the bigger picture and overarching patterns in the broader view, i.e., a model that fits all the smaller details inside of it. When we ask questions in this mode, we're showing that we're paying attention and processing and synthesizing what we're told, which is a different way to build rapport. For example, we could ask, how does this tie into this other idea we spoke about, XYZ? What do all these details mean? What's the pattern here? What does this thing connect to? During conversations, it's not really a matter of which question mode is best, but rather keeping things varied. Imagine you're zooming in and out, first drilling down to learn more about the most interesting details, then coming up for air and getting a broader view. Not only will such a conversation feel like it flows more naturally and enjoyably, your dynamic interest in what you're being told will create a sense of rapport with the other person. At the very least, simply avoid being in one mode for too long. So, for example, if you notice that you've asked 5 chunking up questions in a row, be aware that you may be alienating the other person in overly abstract or aloof hypotheticals. Create balance by asking a detailed question, which will bring in some immediacy and intimacy. Similarly, if you notice the conversation is feeling a little mired in one detail after another, for example, those conversations where people lose a narrative thread because they dwell too long on the minute but insignificant details of who said what and when, then pause, zoom out, and get a broader view of where you are. You might say something like, so, all in all, it seems like yesterday was a pretty crazy day, huh? And that's this week's episode of Social Skills Coaching. Join us next Tuesday for our next episode. Thanks for listening.